two 30-plus point victories against Big Ten opponents in the last 3 games. Can the Illini do it again against USC on Saturday? Let's talk about it. Locked On Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to another episode of Locked On Illini. I'm your host, Sunny Verma. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. While you're here, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Again, it's a way for you to contribute to the channel, and it doesn't cost you anything. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's a Friday edition, so these tend to be a little bit more relaxed. I haven't done a USC preview yet, and I know sometimes you guys are just tired of seeing my face and tired of hearing my voice, so I decided to bring someone a lot prettier than me and a much more soothing voice. Cody, recurring guest. Nice to see you, sir.
Man, what a compliment to start it. Just, I need that because right now I know I need to get a haircut. That's why I've been wearing a hat a lot lately, and I really need to shave. It's winter here in Chicago. It's a blizzard outside right now. Like I am in hibernation right now, man. So.
Yeah,
it's a big compliment.
I just recently moved down here in Austin. I had to wear a jacket today. Very annoying. Very, very uncomfortable, Cody. So I feel your pain.
I'll play the world's smallest violin for you, considering you're in Austin, Texas, and I'm in Chicago, and we know how Chicago winters are, my friend.
Oh yeah. I don't miss that at all. Something I do miss is talking about these previews. So I figure we'd start off. Let's talk about USC. It's a 11 o'clock start, I believe, on Big Ten Network on Saturday. I hate early games, and I know historically Illinois doesn't tend to play too well at that 11 a.m. slot. But USC's just not a very good basketball team, and it's a game that, especially the way we've been playing so far, I think we should be able to, take care of them pretty soundly. But I've also said the same thing in the sense that this team is so young that they can't overlook anybody, because just one bad game and all of a sudden, USC comes up with the upset, and we've already gotten 2 losses in the Big Ten Conference, and we're 2 losses behind Michigan and Michigan State, which essentially, could cost us the opportunity to win the conference this year.
Yeah. You're not wrong when it comes to the it's like turnovers and free throws with this team. Like, we can't win 11 a.m. tip-off games either. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. But they're rolling right now, man. They 5 in a row. They've won 5 in a row. USC just went to IU, on Wednesday? And they actually led by 10 on the road in that first half against Indiana, and then just fell apart. I'll feel a lot better if Kasparas can play in terms of my confidence, obviously. But after what we saw against Penn State, I feel pretty good about Saturday, no matter what time the game starts. They could start at 8 a.m. and I'll be ready. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, yeah, I just think this is one that they need to get if you're going to win this conference. If you're going to win the conference, if your goal as Illinois basketball team, Brad Underwood, all those guys, if your goal is to win this conference, you got to win this game, because you got 2 really, really, like, I don't want to say tough games, but they're intriguing games. They're measuring sticks for me. As much as they've played well of late, the blowout against Oregon, what they did against Penn State without their best player, Indiana still has a lot of talent, and Michigan State, as you just mentioned, they're right up there at the top of the Big Ten right now. They're a ranked team as well, and they're both on the road. So you got to win your home games. If you're going to win the Big Ten, you got to win your home games, especially against teams that are probably going to be at the bottom of the conference this year. It's year 1 for the must bus at USC, and they're coming across the country. Illinois just did that and had success, but I think from what I watched from USC against IU, I don't see how they're going to be in this game very long. They might hang around early, but I don't see how this game's going to be close.
Yeah, I really like Eric Musselman as a coach, and I
Same.
think USC made a great hire with Eric, but the team is just not ready. It seems like it's just a team full of wings, and they're not really spread out that well positionally. It's not something that, again, I feel like we should struggle with too much, especially with the game being at home. If it was a West Coast game, of course, I would be nervous, but I'm just going to feel that way. Even despite a 30-plus point win against Oregon and beating Oregon and Washington, my nerves are just going to get in the way. But having USC come at home while we just beat down Penn State just the game before, obviously we don't know anything about Kasparas yet. I did watch the Brad Underwood pregame press conference, and it sounds like he's leaning towards not playing. He's being kind of vague with what this injury is. None of us really know. But obviously, it's something with his forearm. It doesn't sound like it's anything structural, which is good. It looks like it's just kind of a discomfort thing. So, just based on that limited knowledge, I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. But, Kasparas is projected to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft at this point. Like, even if I'm Kasparas' advisor or Kasparas' dad or, Brad Underwood, if I'm looking out for the player, I'd probably just sit him against USC. If he's not feeling well, then there's no need to really risk anything when the guys that we already have should be able to compete with USC to begin with as well. So it's like, let's just continue talking about the game, but with the idea that Kasparas won't play.
Okay.
Is that fair?
I can do that. And I think that I think it's fair to say that they'll be okay with or without Kasparas.
Yeah.
Am I not giving USC enough credit? Philip in your chat says that USC has been like in the Midwest since they played at Indiana on Wednesday, which is true. They've been in this time zone, right? I get it. But you look at USC schedule and they just haven't beat anyone, man. I guess like their best performance against some of their better teams, they lost by less than double digits against Oregon. Like that's a moral victory. Like they don't have any good wins. So I guess it's an opportunity, but as you said, I think they're a year or two away from really being something. But I will say that you can't sleep on them because I would say they probably are well coached because like you, I do think Eric Musselman is a good coach.
Absolutely. And by the way, I showed you guys Philip's comment. This show is being done live. So in the third segment, I'm going to try something new. We'll see what happens. I'm going to call it the alley-oop segment. So that's where feel free to ask any question. Throw a lob, and either Cody or I, or maybe both, I will try to hammer it down with a response or an answer, pending how comfortable we feel talking about it. So I guess we can just start with the title of this video, which is, I think, this could be a potential big Tre White game. Tre White did play at USC his freshman year. Yeah. Obviously, he played pretty well. I think he was a freshman all Big Ten, all Pac-12. I forget that conference exists at this point. I know. RIP. RIP. I'm all over his totals for over points when it comes on Saturday once that gets released. I just see that, especially if Kasparas is not playing. I talked about this at the postgame. Trey had the quietest 20 points that someone can have. And even Brad Underwood in the postgame press conference said that he didn't run any plays for Trey. Like Trey just happens to score because he plays within the system. And, he's getting better and more confident, since that Wisconsin game, essentially. And, again, just playing familiar colors, I feel like Trey might be the guy to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trey White has been awesome since that Wisconsin game in December. And I was listening to you in the post game for Penn State, and you said something along those lines, right? It was a quiet 20 points. I might be like one of the only people who's truly paying attention. Because for me, I was feeling like how a lot of people were feeling about Ben Humrickhouse in November about Tre White. And so when I went and watched Illinois and Wisconsin at State Farm in December and he had that big game, I was like, okay, is he turning the corner? And I've just been closely watching him myself these last handful of weeks. And so for me, to me, it's not a quiet 20 points. I'm seeing the full package here. This guy he's one of the few other players outside of Kasparas who I think can take guys off the dribble, hit the mid-range shot every now and then. He's done a little ISO doing that, right? He's a good cutter. I love when they go the high pick and roll, get it to Tommy at the free throw line, and he's cutting from one of the sidelines, right? Mm-hmm. And like, he's just an active player right now, and he's getting active on the rebounding game as well. And that was something that Brad had kind of criticized him for, I guess, in post game of one particular game. I don't remember which one, but I feel like he said something, maybe it wasn't necessarily him, but just like the entire team, like offensive rebounding. I want to say it was after the Alabama game. He talked about how the offensive rebounding wasn't there. I really can't remember which game it was, but I feel like he's just been more active, and it's led to him scoring more points because he's either getting an offensive rebound or he's getting active on defense that's allowing him to get out in transition. You know, I think we're seeing a full package from him right now, and it's fun to watch. It makes you wonder, like, as we've talked about before, like the ceiling, because you know what you're going to get out of Kasparas when he's healthy. And I think you know what you're getting out of Kylan. And I feel good about I know Tommy's not playing well of late right now in terms of scoring, but I still feel like you're probably getting a double-double out of him every night, right? So that leaves Hamrikas and Tre White. And if Trey White is emerging as like that second or third option, I feel like more realistically it's your third option. Like, that's really solid as a guy that I think is basically replacing Ty Rodgers, you know? So, yeah, I mean, his confidence has to be extremely high right now. So I could see him having another big game tomorrow, especially if Kasparas doesn't play. He's going to feel more, he's going to have more shot attempts, right?
Sure.
So I think one improvement I'd like to see is maybe the 3-point shot going in a little bit more, but he hit a few against Penn State. So we'll see what happens. I don't disagree with you that it's a quiet 20 points. I just think that maybe for me personally, I've just been paying attention a lot more because I was questioning him in November. Like, what is this guy? You know, like he had I think against, what was it? Against Northwestern, the guy, I don't even know if he played 20 minutes against Northwestern, and the stat sheet was just nothing. And I'm like, this guy's giving you nothing right now. And then he had that breakout game against Wisconsin, and he's been awesome since then.
Yeah, a lot of people were clamoring for Will Riley at that point, you know,
right.
to replace Tre White. You know, speaking of guys who are struggling, let's talk about a guy who's struggling more recently. And I think we're getting a signal from Brad Underwood. I've noticed that in his post-game press conferences, he likes to bring up a certain player who might be struggling on the court before a reporter asks questions about him. He likes to be like upfront about it. And he's brought up Tommy Ivisic's name constantly. And of course, in a very positive nature, right? I think Brad talked about how his defense has really stepped up. And now Joe Jackson, who does the Feed the Post podcast, fantastic, one of the best when it comes to film review. He does confirm and vouch for what Brad is saying Ivisic is turning into one of the best defensive big men in the league. He's very vocal. He reminds me of, for those of you who are Illini fans and watching this and also Bulls fans, first off, very, very sorry. But like Joakim Noah from the good old days, right? Well, like, he kind of anchored that defense, but he was very vocal, and he'd let you know when the switch is coming on which side. And I think that's just kind of what Ivisic is doing right now. The offensive, you know, display is not really there as much anymore, and he's certainly struggled since Big Ten season has hit. And I know that's starting to catch the attention of certain folks, but I think like Brad's trying to be, you know, in the forefront of that. But this is a game I think like he's the second guy I'm looking at, you know, behind Trey White having that revenge game coming back to or playing against USC. I want to see Tommy get, you know, 15 and 11 and just kind of quiet the crowd, quiet the people like me, the other content creators out there who keeps saying, hey, is it me or is Ivisic's numbers going down a little bit?
Sure. When I watched him against Penn State, I just felt like he was just kind of flowing through the motions. Like I need to see a meaner version of him, you know, like he's still going to give you rebounding. And I know Brad talked big about him defensively, and that's fine. That's what they need that from his position, because they didn't have that last year. When I think about last year's team, and if you have Tommy or even Morez Johnson there, that team maybe could have contended with UConn. I'm not going to say they would have, but maybe, but I just think they need a meaner version of him. And me personally, especially if KJ doesn't play tomorrow, they need to get him a few shots in the post to start the game, because that's when he was playing well. They were going to him early, and they would go to him with whether it was free throw line extended or just a post touch. Yeah. And then he would play off it, whether it was kicking it out for a three or something like that. Like that kind of got him going. He was good for them. He would be good for them in the first halves, and then the rest of the game, other guys kind of contributed. But you looked at the box score at the end of the game, it's like, oh, double. Like it was almost kind of like Tre White in my eyes, where it's like, oh, this is what his box score turned out to be. I'd be surprised by it most times. So to me, if they're going to get him going, they need to get him going early. And I feel like you can say that about most big men, but he's got to give you more than 4 points like he did against Penn State. Like he's got to me, most nights he's got to give you a double of some sorts. And when I was watching him at Penn State, I just felt like he was kind of just content with taking outside shots. He did take that mid-range, like pick and pop. It was like the first, I don't know if that's true or not, but it might have been the first mid-range shot I'd seen him take all year, and he just not even close. So he obviously wasn't comfortable taking it. I just think they need to find a way to get him going early. And again, something close to the basket. I thought he had a nice little post move at the very end against Penn State, and when it didn't matter. But for him to get his confidence back up, I think he needs to have a big game tomorrow, because he can be great defensively and rebound the ball and all that and be a presence. But I think Illinois needs him to be a double-double guy more often than not.
Yeah, especially against other Big Ten teams that have bigs. Indiana,
like Indiana, and eventually they're going to play Michigan.
Michigan, right? Michigan. Yeah. Their advantage is they've got two bigs, which most other Big Ten teams don't have, like that are that talented. But Illinois does. But they only do when Ivisic is playing to his abilities. Cody, do you have any predictions for this game?
How about are we talking about a particular player, or just like who wins, or
whatever you want? We'll have a winner, give us a score, and then if you just have something, a pick to click, it's up to you.
Okay. Well, obviously I think Illinois is going to win this game, and the player I'll take, it could obviously be Trey White, but how about I'll go with Ivisic here. I think he'll have a better game. I'll have his best game in Big Ten play tomorrow. I'll go with him.
I love it. I've been saying all season long that I'm waiting for that Will Riley game that he wins by himself. If Kasparas doesn't play, then I'm hoping this could be that Will Riley game. Tre White, again, I think is the easy answer, and I literally have him in the thumbnail, so I feel like that's kind of goes without saying. But I'm not going to make a prediction to the game because, Cody, I don't know if you've noticed, the last two times I made a prediction, it was for Illinois to lose, and they ended up winning. So I'm not trying to reverse jinx that. So from here on out, I'm not going to be making actual final score predictions if I think we're going to win.
If they lose, then everyone can blame me. That's fine. Exactly. I take a lot of heat for these types of things all the time. It's fine. So, but I do remember you did say that they were going to lose to Oregon, and then they won by like 30 points or whatever it was.
Exactly. I'm not breaking that streak. All right, right after this, we're going to talk a little football. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert. Who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day? Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. So the joys of doing the show live, literally during that break, I checked my text messages, and the guy who I know watches these practices says he thinks Kasparas is playing tomorrow.
Oh, great.
In 15 minutes talking about him not
Breaking
playing.
news. Breaking news.
I'm not announcing it, but it looks like he might be playing. By the way, shout out to you watching. Cody, one of the coolest things about getting this Locked On Illini gig is, people within the program have become fans of the show, and every now and then, for whatever reason, they've taken a liking to me, and so I get little information tidbits here and there. So there you have it. I didn't assume he was gonna play, but he might be playing after all.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And also, I don't know if you get notifications, but I did join your Discord like a few days ago. So awesome.
Shout out, by the way, to the PHC crew. If you haven't joined the Discord, it's in the description. Please, we're talking Illini sports all day long and life and sports in general. We have a pretty good time. So I appreciate you doing that.
I'm in like 6 different Discords now. It's a mess, but I know I gotta support my friends.
Look, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little too old for Discord, so that's why I always preface hey, only if you have it, because I know a lot of people my generation and older like, well, I'm not joining Discord.
What is this?
The younger crowd is watching YouTube. So if you are on Discord and if you want to be surrounded by an Illini community, definitely join us here at Locked On Illini. Okay, so let's switch to football for a little bit. Now, I thought that you were the perfect guest for this. So this past week, Illinois has locked up, of course, 3 of their arguably best players in J.C. Davis, Gabe Yakis, and Xavier Scott. But they've also kind of recruited some of the perceived weaknesses that they still might have had. They needed a punter. They went ahead and got the best punter available, Purdue's all Big Ten punter. They got an offensive lineman. Of course, his name escapes me now, from Idaho. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot this. Oh, Aiden Kapnick or Napick. He was a guy, Cody, that I wanted. I would have been okay and content with if he was the guy who's going to replace JC. He was 3rd on my power rankings. I didn't think we had any sort of shot that he would still come with JC coming back. So I can't say this enough. If you're an Illini fan, this is fantastic news. This is the type of guy who he's all Big Sky. He could be starting for a lot of P4 teams out there. And the fact that he's agreed to come here, I do wonder, and I think some other people have speculated that maybe he's just going to redshirt this year so that next year he just slides right into that left tackle spot, since JC is going to, at that point, officially run out of time to play in college football. But it was a huge pickup. We obviously grabbed, we're basically shoring up the perceived weaknesses. And so this is the question I have for you. Bret Bielema, University of Illinois, they win 10 games last season. Mm-hmm. We're returning 18 bowl starters. Hopefully we should be a top 15 team, in the preseason rankings. Some people are saying top 10. Brett's taking care of business on the field. Obviously, right now, the kind of steps that we need is the casuals. And I ask you this question because you say it yourself. You're a fair weather Illini football fan.
Yep.
Is the football program now at the spot where you think that, once it's August comes around, that you're going to be more interested in football and seeing the games? Because you're kind of speaking for a large majority of the fan base that Illinois football kind of needs to reach that next level.
Sure. Let me preface by saying that I've always been a fair weather Illini football fan because I always knew before this new college football playoff format that they were never going to be in the conversation for a national title. Sure. And so it was just hard for me to even get up for the year. It's like, oh, we win 7 or 8 games and go to a bowl game. And that's it. And so it's always been hard for me to want to pay attention. That's why. I love college football. I watch college football every Saturday during the season. But admittedly, like during most of my life, I'll follow Illinois via the box score on, the ESPN app or whatever. But in the Brett Bielema era, I definitely have been paying attention a lot more. And now that this college football playoff format is out and people were arguing after Illinois won their bowl game this year that maybe they could have been in the college football playoff based off how Indiana played and certain other teams played. I don't know if they deserve to be in or not, but there were talking heads saying it or arguing it. I saw on social media, right?
Yeah.
I think for casuals like me, like next year will probably be the most like I'll ever be interested in Illinois football. Like going into it, like they're not going to have to reel me in after a couple games. Like I'm going to be very interested in watching them next year based off what happened this year.
Sure.
And again, like I give a lot of credit to people who followed the football program for as long as they have, for like on a diehard like basis, because when you know that you're never going to have a shot to make it to a national championship, it's hard to want to invest your time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There have been a few seasons, we'll just say last 10 years, where I was like intrigued, but it was always after they would win their first couple games and then they'd have a big win over a conference opponent. And I would start following a little bit. So I don't ever like to claim that I'm some diehard Illinois football fan, because I don't like to gatekeep, but I gatekeep with the teams that I really am diehard for. And so I have to hold myself accountable there. You know what I mean? So I'm excited for next season for Illinois football. I won't sit here and say that I'm going to follow all the recruiting and all that this offseason. I definitely will not. But it's exciting to see that they've had recent draft picks in early rounds, whether it's Witherspoon, who went to the Seahawks a few years ago, Chase Brown, Sidney Brown, like those guys are studs at the NFL level. Like what Brett Bielema has done to the Illinois football program is something that I never thought I would see just at this level. Like even if they don't go the national or the college football playoff next season, I still feel pretty good about them winning 8 or 9 games and getting a bowl game. And I think that's another thing too, is like there's just never been real consistency with Illinois football over the course of my life. I got going to the Rose Bowl in 2008 with Juice Williams and Rashard Mendenhall. And then there's like a couple seasons with the Lovie Smith era, I guess. But like I feel like in this era, there's been a lot more consistency, and you feel like there's a chance to go to a bowl game every year. So I don't want to set the expectation that I'm expecting to go to the college football playoff next year, but they're definitely getting the hype right now that they could be a top 15 team in the AP poll going into week 1 or week 0 of college football next year. That has never happened in my entire life. I don't think so. Yeah, like that. It's exciting. It's good for Illinois football. It's good for just college football fans in general who like rooting for teams that came out of nowhere. I think one of the things that people like college football is when coaches go a place and they turn a program completely around and you see it like kind of blossom into something. And I think that's what's kind of happening here. They haven't got to that big stage yet. Like Notre Dame is a huge football school, right? But Marcus Freeman, he comes in after Brian Kelly leaves in a very like ugly fashion. And just in a few years, he's got them going to the national championship game. And as much as I don't like Notre Dame, admittedly, like I can't believe I'm actually probably going to root for them if they play Ohio State at least. And I just think that's cool. I think that's what's awesome about college football, because for a large portion of my life, it's always like, okay, Alabama, what other SEC school, Georgia, like it's always chalk. There's no parity, but you always have the little storylines like Indiana this year, for example, So I think Illinois is on the path to taking that next step and being a real contender for a college football playoff spot next year, which is awesome to hear. And as just a fan of the school, even though I didn't go there, like if I can watch Illinois' football team in the fall and be excited and whatever, it's nice to go into basketball season with that excitement and fun, because I've always, through most of my life, I've always just been like, all right, I'm going to watch these games and whatever happens, but when's Illinois basketball's first game of the year? Like, when's this, what, get me to that. Like, even during some of the worst years of the basketball program, I always have been like that. So yeah, this next coming season for Illinois football will be a lot different for me personally. Again, fair weather fan, hand up.
Which is okay, as long as you're admitting it, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess like my original point was like, there's a lot of fans like you, like it's totally understandable who maybe just started paying attention in particular, like at the end of this particular season, who maybe got together with a bunch of their old roommates or whatever for this Illinois Citrus Bowl game. And hey, we beat an SEC team, right? We ended up going 10-3. And oh, by the way, we're returning a lot of those players, and we're going to be one of the most talked about teams next year. To circle back to what you said, about how this is probably the most excited you've been when it comes to entering a season. Now imagine if that excitement is rewarded, right? Yeah. Imagine like the fan like you who's excited about the football team. And what if they go 10-2? They make it to the CFP, and all of a sudden, this past year, you may have started the season lukewarm, barely paying attention, not being able to name 5 players. As the season progresses, Illinois keeps winning. You notice yourself tuning in a little bit more, and then all of a sudden, you get a little bit more invested. For example, when we play the bowl game. Now, forward to this year, you're like, hey, this team might be pretty decent, but I'm not going to pay attention to recruiting, this and that, like you just said. Yeah. But again, this team goes 10-2. Upsets. Let's just say they upset Ohio State at home. All of a sudden, game day is going to be coming to Champaign for the first time this year. They have to. We're like one of the 5 schools that have never hosted game day. And then all of a sudden you might have realized that, you have become more invested in the football team. And all of a sudden, you are paying attention to, the Locked On Illini Discord or whatever about recruiting tidbits here and there. And, you're in Chicago still. So, Brett's made a big issue about recruiting Illinois. And so, if there's a hotshot quarterback or whatever, you might be, kind of interested to see, hey, what is this team going to look like next year? Who knows? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the nice feeling is for, someone who's been watching a little bit longer like myself, is that we have a guy like Brett Bielema who has been acting as if he's always been playing the long-term card. Yeah. He hasn't taken shortcuts. He's slowly building this team to hopefully, that level, because really that's all we're missing right now. Like I just re-upped my season tickets, and, I'm almost sure that at some point this offseason they're going to announce a record for season tickets sold. I can't imagine. The tickets are cheap. I think I have 4 tickets every single game for like $400. I mean, you try to go to an Ohio State game, try to go to a Michigan game, 1 ticket's going to cost you $400. You can get an entire season's worth, and 4 seats. So it's like, it's a ridiculously good value. And especially if this team wins 10 games.
Yeah, no, I think the best way for me to explain it, after they won the Citrus Bowl, like the photos I saw like on my Twitter timeline of people like tweeting Memorial Stadium, 7 years ago, and it was just empty, Yeah. It's kind of like how I feel about how Brad Underwood has done with the basketball program. Like it's at a point where it's like you appreciate what you're watching right now and you enjoy it. Yeah, it's not always perfect. Yeah, they haven't won a national championship in football or even basketball yet, but man, at least they're putting themselves in the conversation, Like they're going to be talking about Illinois being a top 25 team going into next season.
Absolutely.
And like being a serious contender, and they're bringing back their quarterback that, I mean, is the leader of this team, in my opinion. I feel very, very, very hopeful for like a fun year, and maybe Illinois football finally takes a step forward that I've never seen, and not just being competent and just get a regular bowl game. Like maybe they get if it's not CFP next season, maybe it's like a New Year's Six Bowl or something like that, and they're playing another SEC school. it's baby steps for me. And again, my expectations are low. I think other fans will have higher expectations, but just being in the conversation for me, at least, is exciting. And so, again, we've watched a lot of bad teams over the years and just wondered to ourselves, why do we put ourselves through this? And it's exciting time to be an Illini fan. I don't think there's ever been a more exciting time, and just in general. Like, even the women's basketball team is becoming kind of good, and as someone who didn't go to school at Illinois, just grew up an hour away from Champaign and fell in love with the 04-05 Final Four team. It gets fun to follow their entire athletics program now, even as an adult. And it's largely just because they're putting an entertaining product out there. And, if I'm going to like the men's basketball team, I might as well support everything else going on.
I mean, that's one less wardrobe change. You can wear the same colors. It's not like you have to buy a different hoodie or different color. I think Bob puts it really well here. Same back when Illini were bad in basketball and football. It was a dark time in Champaign. I think the entire Champaign Urbana area will be seeing a lot more people in the area. I hope so. Again, I think it's the last thing that we're kind of waiting for, especially with this new system, with the financials and revenue. Like, Illinois is going to need to sell those seats. And because, if you want the best players, now we're at the point in college athletics, like it or not, you're going to have to pay for them. So, it is what it is. We'll see. Again, I think the Illini roster, for the most part, is pretty much done. We'll see in the spring if, once the spring game happens, if there's some last-minute guys who decide to, hey, I'm not going to win out my spot, and maybe they try to find, a spot elsewhere and they enter the transfer portal season. But the way Brett's been handling the transfer portal and retention, we haven't lost anyone that I regret losing so far. And again, that's just more power to Brett and what he's building. More right after this. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Cody, we're almost at that 40-minute mark. So let the Illini crowd know where they can find your Illini content, because you posted a video, I believe, earlier today. Was it earlier today or was it yesterday?
It was late last night. Well, not late last night. It was right before the Penn State Notre Dame game, so no one was watching live with me, which I don't blame them. But yeah, I just on my YouTube channel, you just search my name, you'll find me. Cody_CHGO is my YouTube handle as well. I do my own Illinois podcast. It's called From Beyond Champaign. It's just if you're just into Illini basketball, that's what it's there for. I'm not putting up daily content like Sunny, but it is my outlet for my Illini fandom. Most people know me, as you can see behind me. I cover the Chicago Cubs for CHGO Sports, so that's my full-time gig. But until CHGO decides to add an Illini podcast, I got to get it out somewhere. So, yeah, you can follow me over there, or obviously on Twitter, all the other social media platforms. I'm putting up a lot of Illini stuff on my TikTok account, and I'm here crossing my fingers that the app isn't banned in like 9 days or whatever it is. yeah, that would be crazy. And definitely do subscribe to Cody's channel. When you're watching him in particular live, you might be seeing me in the comments. I always try to say hello to Cody whenever I open up that phone, and there he is. Also, if you're not subscribed to this channel for whatever reason, you stumble on this for the first time, please do subscribe. As Cody said, I do this content every single day, and I try to do this on weekends too. So it's 30 minutes of Illini content. If you're a fan, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, but trust me, it helps this channel grow immensely. All right, Cody, we've got USC on Saturday, and then we have Indiana right after that. It's going to be a busy time
I've got recruitment news on the football side, which I'll probably release that video sometime this weekend. We've got a lot of content here. We've got a lot of content at Cody's channel. Make sure you check us both out. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.